Here we go, episode number 31. And Scott and I should have hit record much earlier because we were talking about some really good stuff about things that just sometimes ultimately you lose sleep over. And I was getting ready to tell a lesson, and I thought, man, we should probably hit record.
Yeah, most
So
definitely.
if anybody's ever like dealt with a lot of things, like everybody deals with something, right? And you can choose to go through that with joy or with, being upset. You can certainly lose sleep, but sometimes Scott was talking about you just can't get some things off your mind. Like they are
Mhm.
just there and they won't go away. Well, let me tell you what's worked for me to help things get off my mind. And sometimes I get a little bit stressed out because sometimes I do forget. Yes, I do admit I forget things sometimes. But if you have a phone or a tablet or anything that you can write on, I've realized things that continue to come up that just continue to bother me. I make that like a checkbox and I
Mhm.
put it down on a to do list. And I'm like, if I only do this today, I'm going to check this thing off so it's no longer bothering me. And normally I stick to like three things a day. So I pick those three big things that's really bothering me and I check those boxes off. And sometimes I don't get all three of them checked off, but I do my best to check them off. And I've noticed the relief that I get from getting that accomplished, like it's no longer bothering me.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's that thing. If it keeps coming up, and it was what we were just talking about. Is there was a guy, I think his name is J.J. Douglas. Listen to him. It's like something's triggering you or keeps coming up. It's because we haven't dealt with it, and like your process there, where you actually go and deal with it. You have to do that, or else it'll just keep coming up. Because I know there's been plenty of times where I couldn't sleep. I wake up and start thinking about something, but I've kind of learned to tell myself, hey, let it go back to sleep, and
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
it's kind of takes training. Sometimes it works, sometimes it works better than others. Sometimes you just go, okay, yeah. And then usually when we get past it, we sit there and we go, why, like we were just saying, why did I spend so much time on this? This wasn't as big of a deal as I made it out to be. And generally, things are that way. They're not as big as we thought they were. We made them into something that was huge.
Oh, gosh, I can't tell you how many times something wasn't a big a deal as what my mind had made it out to be. And, that also putting it on the calendar or making it as a checkbox, a to do list item. And I'm like, I'm going to allocate all day to this or, because this is this great big problem in my mind. And next thing I know, I knock it out in like 15 minutes. And it's like, well, I should have planned more accordingly for this because now I'm sitting here with all day. But we
Yeah,
always have tons of
block out
tasks.
the rest of the day. There's
Yeah.
that. There's that thing when I used to work in tech or whatever, where you get so focused on something, problem on the computer, and you're sitting there, and then finally, after a couple of weeks or whatever, you keep going back to it and something like that, and then somebody comes along. Usually, it's some young guy that knows everything. Comes and goes, just F4, click, click, click,
Yeah.
and you go,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Man,
it.
it's been a thorn in my side for months.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you should have told me. It's sometimes it's just that simple that generally we make things a lot bigger than they need to be, and we need to probably just maybe ask somebody else, put your hand up, stop for a minute, and there's that saying, I think it was by Gandhi. He said, I got so much stuff to do that instead of meditating 1 hour, I need to meditate 2 hours.
Right there. Right there. Well, Scott, let's dive in, buddy. Today's about purpose over balance, alignment over acceptance. We've got 10 questions here. I'll let you rattle through those questions.
Sure.
And just thinking through this, man, there's been so many times the purpose over balance. Like, what does balance really mean? I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, for myself, I know for a long time I was always seeking. I needed to have a balanced life. Work this amount. Play this amount, that kind of stuff. But it was always out of whack because when you try to even it out, it really it's really, it doesn't quite get there. But if you're like, you're living with a purpose, you know, everything you do is going to be in alignment. Everything you do is going to be, I mean, not everything, but the majority of what you're doing, if you're fulfilling your purpose, your life is going to be more than balanced. It's because you're going to be doing things that you love. It's not going to feel like work. It's going to feel like it's going to fill you up. It's going to fill up other people. And it's just going to be a never ending story of just like positive things that'll just keep happening because you're living with that purpose. You're living an intentional life. You're moving with intention. You're doing with intention, and everything will just start aligning up and start. You'll start feeling that alignment, and you won't need to accept anything outside of that.
Yeah. And that was good. So good. Yeah, that was really kind of the what's the difference between balance and alignment? That was question number one.
And yeah.
And I think you just nailed that one, man. You hit it out of the park. That's exactly what it is, in my opinion.
Well, and then that brings us to, what the next question would be. Why do high performers often struggle with the idea of balance? And I know what my struggle is, but you go ahead. I'd like to hear your take on what you've struggled with the idea of balance.
Man, I've been through so many trials and tribulations around this right here. And I've actually been challenged a lot by other people. Like, man, why don't you seek balance? Like, why do you struggle with balance and all these things? And it's like what they see on the outside is me struggling with this balance. But it's not that I'm struggling with balance. It's like I know what balance feels good to me. So really the struggle being a high performance guy is like drawing a line in the sand with the boundaries and not crossing them, like what's red on the calendar. Like as long as my life is balanced, and we talked about this between like the credit and debit section of friendships and relationships and stuff like that. I think the biggest problem we have as high performers is we struggle to prioritize. We struggle to find where the line in the sand is
Hmm.
because we're put in these positions and we're have a tremendous value to the people involved with us. So we have this higher calling and we have a lot on our plate. Like I've heard your phone ring a few times already. Like when you're a high performer and you've done this in the public eye, you're called to do a lot more. So you carry a lot more of a burden. And when you do that, you have to set more block wall boundaries to maintain balance. Like you have to. What
Yeah,
about you?
yeah. With me, that when going back to like the whole purpose versus balance thing is, I've always struggled with balance because sometimes like I step on the gas and don't let up, and there's no balance there, at all. And then sometimes like when I come back from the boat, I might sleep for a couple of days, and there's no balance the other way. But in the long term of it, you're really balancing out. Your body and your mind's really telling you what to do. But if you're living with that purpose, you're going to probably step on it really hard sometimes and say, hey, let's go, because you're excited about what you're doing. And, and a good friend of mine said to me, Matt, he said, everything in moderation, including moderation.
Right there. Right there.
That resonated with me because that's kind of how I am sometimes. Like if I get excited about something, I'm not going to stop. But I, there'll come to a point where I'll be like, okay, that's it. I got to stop. And that kind of happened the other day when we went to California and took a break. When we landed there, I was like, you know what? I don't have to do anything today. And that's what I'm just going to go to the beach with my wife. We're going to go walk around and hang out. And you know what? That was everything I needed.
Absolutely. So that brings me to this next question. This is a good one. Can a life of purpose ever look balanced?
Hmm. That is that is a tough one. From the outside, probably not.
I think that was I was reading the question and I thought, from the outside, I don't think it ever looked balanced. But what
How's
is
it feel?
balanced?
Yeah, but how's it feel?
That's it. How are you? One of the best ones, I don't know if you know Rick Risby or not. Rigsby, really good motivational speech. He was talking about how his father was talking about life, and his number one question is, how you living? And man, that question right there,
Hmm.
there's been so many times, I'll be honest, man, there's been times that I've asked myself that question and I got a little emotional about it because how I was living wasn't where I was supposed to be living. I
Hmm.
had all kinds of things going on. And just like when we started the conversation, and how I was living was not the greatest.
Hmm.
And I think that balance on the outside will always look out of balance. But
Hmm.
as long as we're internally,
You
like
know,
saying, how am I living? Man, I'm living good. I'm living
and
great.
how do you feel? And it's something I know you always say is in balance compared to what?
That's it.
Like
That's
me
it.
compared to
Because,
you or you compared to somebody else, what might look out of whack for what somebody else might do. For me, it could be controlled chaos that everything's good for me. I feel great, and I think that's a question we need to ask and go deeper with is well, you might look out of balance, but how's it feel? Like how you living is that same question. If you're feeling like everything's good and you're going great and you're filled up, I think that's balance right there.
I mean, is imbalance sometimes necessary for certain seasons of growth? Yes, absolutely. And I'll be honest, man, there's been times that I am so freaking excited about the things I'm doing. Dude, there'd be nothing else I'd want to do in this world.
Hmm.
So, am I spending, I don't know, 18 hours doing it? Yeah, but who cares, man? Like, it is absolutely phenomenal, but yet tomorrow I can take off the entire day with my family and know that I've just done these amazing things. So, I think you hit it, like in balance and compared to what?
Yeah, most definitely. Because, what it looks like on the outside it really doesn't matter.
So, let's see. How do you know when you're out of alignment?
That's for me. I've learned that the hard way is when the stress starts to get you, because that's when you know you're doing things that you're not necessarily should. Your body and your brain are telling you, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing this. This is eating you up. It's keeping you up at night. It's hurting you. It's hurting your family. It's hurting people around you. You need to, you take a step back and realize where you are and what you need to do. Hey, maybe you need to clear this thing out, or maybe just not do that anymore."
Yeah, I know there's certain signals, right? So, like mental, emotional, spiritual, telling yourself or telling your living someone else's expectations sometimes.
Hmm.
I know for me, a really good signal, and it's not so easy to catch, is when I notice that, say, I've left an event and I've met a lot of good people, and I don't follow up with those people for a couple weeks. That's not really like me.
Hmm.
But there's something else going on that's keeping me from being that balanced, loving, caring individual that wants to continue to build relationships with people. That there's something else deeper going on that's got me kind of mentally and emotionally and sometimes spiritually kind of a little skewed. And that really is not coming to the surface as fast as what I would like. So oftentimes it's prioritizing that purpose of the things we're chasing and the balance of keeping the checks and balances of following up with people and keeping the mental and the emotional feelings in check.
Yeah, most definitely. Again, it goes back to how you're feeling about what you're doing. If you're, there's that saying where your gut's your second brain.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you feel something in your gut that is not right, or something's causing you that kind of pain, you really probably got to take a step back. That emotional intelligence about where you are with what you're doing. that's a sign. It sure is a sign, you know.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to our next one here is why do so many people choose acceptance over alignment?
Because it's the easy button.
Yeah,
I
most
think
definitely.
a lot of people struggle with stepping out, being called out, being that beacon of light that might get some stones thrown at them. And I think that people have this fear of rejection, the
Hmm.
fear of instability, and fear of being misunderstood. I certainly feel like a lot of people have had trouble with this, and it's sad because on the other side of the greatest version you've ever thought of in life, it's on the other side of temporary pain.
Yeah,
It's on the other side of getting past these feelings. Like you're being stopped by probably things that never will come true, but it's the fear. And fear is false evidence appearing real. It's fake. It can't
yeah.
hurt you.
It most definitely is, you know, and stepping past that fear, that's the growth of who we need to be or who we actually are. And once we step into it, I mean, the sky's the limit. There's no stopping you. But there's always going to be more things that come up. You know, a lot of times, and I've been through this before. You know, accepted the situation, said, "Well, that's just how it is," and you know, that's But looking back, it's like, man, I was in my own way so many times, and I was the biggest block. Still am the biggest block
Yeah.
in
Yeah. I
my
mean,
way because another friend said to me, and man, I can't forget who told me this, but he said, "Look, at the end of the day, no one cares what you're doing. People are so wrapped up in their own lives that they do not give one ounce what you're doing and what you're all about. There, it's a very egocentric way to think of people and everything, but in a way, it's true because if you step out and do something, you screw up. So what?
I think it's true until you make the bold decision to think clearly on how you want to be remembered. And
Yeah,
every single step you take is with integrity, with showing up, no matter how hard it is. And then you get to that point where people are like, man, that Scott kid, man, we're going to jump right into the next question because I think it leads into this. How does alignment impact leadership? Now, I know you're a captain, you're a business owner, you're a father. What changed in the operating system for your alignment instead of the just traditional approach?
well, in relation to the last question and your answer, who do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? That, like, if somebody said something to me like, how do you want your kids to remember you? And that's where it kind of made something. And that was when the kids were really young or about to be born. An older gentleman said that to me. How do you want your kids to remember you? That kind of said, well, okay, I got to make some serious like decisions. And a lot of times it's very difficult to stand alone and make that hard decision, especially when you feel like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. And I know you've been there, and I know I've been there many times, and other times will come as well where you have to step out and make that hard decision. And sometimes you may feel like you're alone, but you're really not. There's other people that have gone through the exact same struggles, but at that time maybe you feel like you're standing alone, but making that decision and standing alone can be very difficult. And you know as a captain, father, a leader, and things like that, how do I want my kids to remember me is something that will always drive my alignment, and affect the leadership that I have, because I want people around me to know that I'm making the best decision that I can, that I'm putting my best foot forward, not just for myself, but for everyone around me. And it's not just me by myself, and that's how, the alignment affects my leadership, because I want them to know that I'm making the best decision that I possibly can for them and for everyone around. It's that's something that's all encompassing, because it's not really just about me. What about yourself? Like in your leadership of your companies?
I think the number one thing that I learned from many mentors was to stop reacting and be proactive to every single action you take. Because when you react to it all, you will damage relationships, you will damage your leadership potential of how you're viewed. And, sometimes it's not so easy to take a proactive approach because that's not often what gets approval. People want answers like right now, but
Hmm.
the minute that you stop that activity and become more of a proactive business owner, father, captain, whatever you're doing, making the proactive decisions and slowing things down to the right pace to make the right decision is the most important thing you could ever do.
Yeah, it most definitely is, and a lot of times it's hard to be proactive because there are things in life that come up that we do need to react to. But like you said, if you take a step back and stop and make everything stop and make a clear assessment and say, okay, going forward, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and do it in a controlled, purposeful manner, you'll come to the right.
Well, I think it's viewed as maturity
Yeah,
because as a young parent, when there's puke on your sleeve and there's poop in the diaper and everything else, and if something else happens, it's
yeah,
one little, like, it's the straw that broke the camel's back, and you just want to blow up out of a
yeah,
situation. It's very difficult. But as you mature into situations, the whole thing could be on fire. There could be
mm,
poop in the diaper. There could be puke over your sleeve, and you're like, it's all right.
yeah,
People appreciate someone that has a very calm, cool, collected, ice in the veins approach to
hmm,
things and never getting rattled.
yeah. Most definitely is, but if it gets back to that, if you're living with purpose, like, hey, the baby's going to puke on me, but that's, we're raising this baby. So this is what we're doing. So that's your purpose and everything, that it just really is kind of overwhelmingly good when you think of it in that respect, and that brings us to like the next question. And it's, what does purpose cost? But I'll go ahead and jump in real quick on this one. Maybe this will give you something else to think about too, is that living with purpose costs nothing, but living without it costs everything.
Man, I was throwing you the fastball, and I knew you're going to knock it out of the park because I seen this question and you just picked it up and it just ran with it. And that's so true, man. Like, you miss every shot you don't take.
Hmm.
And I've been saying this the last couple of days, but I think I'm really hoping, not seeking, hoping to hear, and I'm very intentional about it. When I do get to the end of life, I hope to hear the words, good job, good and faithful servant.
Nice.
And the only way that happens is to pay attention to your purpose and realize, yeah, it could cost me. It could cost me a lot. If someone says they want to live a purpose driven life, what are they actually signing up for? Well, I can tell you what they're not signing up for if they don't sign up. It's
Hmm.
going to cost them everything. And you'll never find out. Like Ed Milet talks about meeting the person you were supposed to be at the end of life. Come on, man. Would you want to get to that point and not even realize what that person looks like? Like,
Yeah.
that was the future you. That was supposed to be you. And you didn't take the shot. You didn't do it because you felt like it cost you too much.
Yeah. And it ended up costing you everything because you missed out on being that person.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh, that was a good one. Oh, that was a really good one.
Love that one.
I'll bring us right in the next one then. How do you communicate alignment without burning bridges? So, how do you communicate alignment without burning bridges?
Well, I think if you're living that way and something comes up, and it goes back to that calm, cool, collective kind of thing, where if you just tell somebody in a calm manner, no, I'm not willing to do that because that goes against what we're trying to do here. Most of the time, people will respect that. And if they don't, that's okay too. And you can say that to them like, well, and this is where we are with this. And, I hope you understand that this is what we're doing. And if they don't and they fly off the handle or they get upset, you're like, well, that's okay. It's your right to have your opinion and have your thoughts about it too. But this goes back to where it can be very tough. You could be in a room full of people like that saying that, you're wrong. And I've been in that room. I've been that guy. The next step was me removing myself from that room.
Yeah, absolutely. Just thinking through this question kind of digs up something personal going on right now, not personal and business, really. And thinking through the question, how do you communicate alignment without burning bridges? Not to get in the dirty details, but there's currently a situation where there's a person in an organization that their alignment is not the same as our company mission and direction, and their alignment is not one that I want in a position or a role that has so much gravitational pull. And I think, how do you stand firm in your direction without being defensive or reactive? And I think that's a huge level of maturity to step back and go, okay, how do we communicate this in a way that we're not being defensive to the situation and we're not reacting to what happened that got us to this point? And we're going at this with facts and saying, hey, look, I would love to continue, and I don't want to burn any bridges here. Put that out front. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to burn any bridges here. We're misaligned. And this alignment is very important to us and our company. So I don't know what to do here,
Mm-hmm.
but I can tell you that we're not going to continue in the manner that we've continued so far. And sometimes if you just put that out front, it's a big difference.
Yeah, and that's just the quality, and that shows, the type of leader and person that you are. That you put that out there, and I'll go one step further to something I thought of is like a question that's helped me sometimes is help me understand where this is coming from, and sometimes that's what it takes for them to say, and it might be something as clear as like, well, I got this going on, and this is going on, and this is where I need to be and stuff. And then it kind of brings it all together, and then it kind of keeps everyone on the same level. But that's just a testament to the type of leader that you are, that you want to bring this to the forefront and say, hey, well, we need to make sure that we're in alignment so that going forward we don't get into these situations again, and that we can all keep moving forward in the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next question is, what role does restraint play in alignment?
Hmm.
I'm going to pitch that one to you first. So what role does restraint play in alignment?
Well, and this would come up with something that I've been reteaching myself over and over again is the word no. Just saying no. Something is not in alignment because I get excited and sometimes take on, well, a lot of times take on more than I should. Whereas I should have said, wow, that is a really great idea and thank you for the opportunity. I'm thinking of me. But right now I cannot move ahead with that, and restraint does play a big part in the alignment, because if something's not in alignment and it might sound really good, but it's not necessarily in alignment with what you're doing, you need to say no to that and just stay on that path, and it may be revisited another time once maybe that is later in life, that could be something that's in alignment with what you're doing, but saying no is a big part of it.
Yep. I've told a lot of contractors, and including people that were under my leadership, that you're in the position of misalignment because you've said yes too much.
Hmm.
If you learned to say no and stuck to what you were good at and what you had good alignment in, you probably wouldn't be in this position. And they're usually like, Eddie, you're right. I should have never been doing all those other things that honestly I have no passion in. And that's why I've done such a bad job. And I apologize. So how do I make it up to you? Just don't say yes to too much.
Hmm.
It's okay to say no to me. Like, just because I'm in this position of being able to hire, fire, pay, promote all these different positions to help you, don't feel obligated to say yes to everything I throw at you. Sometimes I'm throwing things at you as a test. I'm hoping you have the maturity to say no.
Yeah, and be careful with the word maybe too.
Yeah,
Maybe
maybe is an
keeps you
open end.
Yeah, maybe keeps you in the middle somewhere, and then that keeps you like stuck spinning your wheels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Say no.
Say
Just
no,
say
say
no.
it often. Remember, you're designing this life. The life you want is waiting for you. You just have to go after it. And sometimes it's saying no.
Yeah.
Last question here, number 10, is if someone is feeling stuck in a life they've accepted, keyword, bold print, accepted,
Accept it.
what's the first step back towards alignment? So Scott, I'm gonna have you go in on this question because I know that you have recreated yourself a couple of times as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes you accepted certain
Yeah.
things at that time.
Yeah, and going back to what I was alluding to earlier, there were times where I accepted, like, well, this is just how it is. And then it took me looking at myself in the mirror and sitting there, is like, is this really what I want? Is this who I am? Is, why am I doing all this? Like, why am I staying here? Why am I accepting this when my why is obviously I'm doing everything for my family, but I'm not, why am I accepting this? Like, I can obviously be so much more and do so much more. So it takes like asking yourself the hard questions. Like, one especially is like, why are you accepting this?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That is so powerful. And I'm gonna read off a couple things here um, that I think would be really good for the listeners. I think it really would. I'm just going to run through this list of things that I want to talk about, and we'll finish up here on the back end. So let's say balance is a popular word, but purpose isn't balanced. And when you're building something meaningful, a business, a family, a legacy, a new identity, it won't even look the way you feel it should. And it won't be envied or distributed in a way that seems okay. Some seasons demand more from you. The problem is imbalance. The problem is misalignment. And when you're aligned, the long hours don't drain you. They build you. And when you're aligned, the sacrifice feels intentional. And when you're aligned, you don't need consistent approval. Acceptance says, this is how it is. Alignment says, this is who I am. You don't need everyone to understand your direction. You need clarity on your direction. Purpose over balance, alignment over acceptance. That's the inner compass. And when you live from that place, decision gets clearer, leadership gets stronger, and peace gets deeper.
Yeah, that's so true. All of those things, when you are living in an alignment and you're very purposeful, that all goes together and that keeps you on that path. And it's easier to see those things you need to say no to. It's easier to see those things that are in alignment when you're living with purpose. When you're not, you say yes to everything and it just ends up being a big mess.
I can't tell you how many times I get emails, phone calls, and everything else of people wanting me to get involved in certain things. And I want to work with these people. I
Yeah.
want to I want to work with everybody.
Hmm.
But yet sometimes I know because I've been given these certain opportunities that are just a gift. They're a blessing and I have to steward them well. So sometimes that means is I'm sorry, man. I would love to work with you, but I'm already doing this over here and it's taking all of my time. And I believe in this. So therefore, you don't say no to things because you dislike the person. You're saying no because you know the outcome. And the outcome is you have to finish the first battle before you start anything new. And some things you're meant to achieve, you're meant to do. And I feel that I've gotten more praise, not that I'm seeking praise, but I've got more praise from people that said, Eddie, I'm going to be honest. Even in the same breath after I said no, I got to be honest, Eddie, I really look up to you for your ability to know what is most important in your life and to say no. Even when the opportunity is $100 million, you've said no.
Mhm.
And it's not like you don't need the money. I'm sure everybody could use $100 million, by all means. But however, I believe in what I'm doing,
Mhm.
even though it might be a lesser dollar amount. I believe in what I'm doing, and I know that this is what I've already said yes to. I know that that is my purpose. That is my alignment, and it's going to create the life that I'm seeking. But if I said yes to all these other things just because I would get praised for it, just because it would be accepted more, and I've already been there. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to
Yeah.
say yes to too much.
Yeah, I've been there many times, and it builds over time. But I get the same, and especially a lot lately. There's a lot of people and a lot of things that I really want to work with one day. But right now, their opportunity is not my opportunity. It's not the thing that I should be doing. And it's nothing. And I hope they don't take it personal. I hope they don't, feel as though I'm disregarding them in any way. It's just that I myself also have a lot of things on my plate, and I have to clear these things before all these other things can come to fruition. And once I get to that point, then maybe we can revisit those things, because there's a lot of lovely people in my life that are, think highly enough of me to present these opportunities to me. And I'm really pleased and grateful for that, but I cannot step forward into it just because it's I'd love to be able to do everything, but you can't be all things to all people.
No,
You end up being no one to everyone.
that's right. Right. Well, Scott, my friend, this has been a wonderful podcast. Absolutely love doing this with you. It just lifts me up in so many ways. I hope the same for the listeners. And guys, if you could do, guys, gals, everybody listening, if you could do us a favor, please like and subscribe and share this with somebody else if this has been impactful to you. This is about 40 minutes, and we could do this for hours upon hours. We
Yeah,
really
we could.
could. And it's been so cool to see the people that's commented, the people that have called me up and said, Eddie, man, that Inner Compass podcast you and Scott do is just absolutely amazing. It's helped me out so much. And those are the people that haven't really publicly commented or subscribed. And that's okay. But we hope that you do like this enough to smash that like button and to share it with somebody else. And please subscribe if you can. It helps us out and it gets us to more people. Scott, where can people find you, buddy?
It's pretty easy. Investwithscottkid.com. You can find all the social media, all the channels, everything there, website. Look forward to hearing from you guys. If anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out. Glad to talk and see what we can do.
Absolutely. So go to EddieAustinBEX.com. You'll find everything about me there, and Eddie Austin BEX on all social media platforms. And if you're interested in my book, go to weldedtowealth.com and you can see all the details about that. Talk to you guys later on. Thank you all so much.